Hi and welcome to another episode with the Z Farmer. Today's training will talk about planting and irrigating. It's very important for you to know as a farmer and as a startup or as just a normal farmer how to do adequate planting and how to irrigate properly. So first of all, let's talk about planting. In planting, we have two things that we need to consider. The first thing is that if your land prep is correctly done and your ridges are done, you cannot plant tomato, especially a small tomato seedling, like what we talked about in the greenhouses, on flat land. So take, for example, this particular bed. We have a bed here, which is made like a bed. It's the same thing. If you take a baby from the hospital, you can't put that baby on the floor. That baby needs to be in a crib. It's the same thing with the seedlings. These are babies, so they need to be on a nicely made ridge. Now, ridge to ridge, we have ridges, about almost 100 ridges going. In a hectare, we usually get about 68 ridges. So this particular ridge, from ridge to ridge, should be 1.5 meters apart. So what do I talk about with distance? When I talk about 1.5 meters apart, I talk about from plant to plant. And the easiest way to measure is to take your boot or your shoe and take two steps. So one step like this and one step like that. Obviously, if you're a guy, you will take bigger steps, but just consider the Z Farmer steps as you're measuring. It's very important to just take a stick, you measure, you take a stick and you break it, and that's what your workers follow. Another thing to consider when you're planting is that the drip lines and the pipes matter. From your irrigation source, which is the borehole or wherever it is that you're getting your water from, you should consider your yield before putting a pipe down. So one pipe should come from the borehole and then another pipe connected to the open field, which will then supply the drip lines. Now, this particular pipe is a 40 millimeter pipe, which is the standard that we use on discharging water. If you've got a very high yield borehole and you've got a very powerful pump, a 50 millimeter pipe will do. The only difference between a 50 millimeter pipe and a 40 millimeter pipe is that the 50 millimeter pipe will have a lot of pressure, whereas a 40 millimeter pipe will have normal pressure. Now, why don't you need a lot of pressure? If you have too much pressure in the main pipe, what happens is that the drip lines won't be able to hold. So you need to ensure that the pressure is normal. Now, I have a drip line here, which is exactly 20 centimeters apart. And how we plant with the drip lines is that we plant where the water comes out. So when it's time to plant, it's very important that you switch on your irrigation, you make sure that the water is coming out, and then you make your holes to plant. When planting, how deep do you need to go with the holes? About 10 centimeters deep, where the root system of the seedling will sit. How deep do you plant? I will take out one seedling for you to see. So this particular seedling is planted and it plants up to here. So a basic guide for planting is planting where the purple finishes. Gets planted where the purple lining finishes. Once you plant where the purple lining finishes, you bury your plants and you plant zigzag. Why do we plant in a zigzag way? The reason is that the drip line should be held in place by the plants, because if you plant in a straight line, what happens is that the drip line falls on the other side and it has to keep being put back when it's time to irrigate. Another thing to consider when you're planting is that once you plant, you need to make sure you drench Easy Grow Vegetative and imidacloprid, the mixture in a knapsack sprayer at 20 liters. So Easy Grow Vegetative at 50 grams and imidacloprid at 300 mils. Sorry, 30 mils in a knapsack sprayer. I'm thinking about a drum. So you put that in a knapsack sprayer, you put water at 20 liters, you put 50 grams of Easy Grow Vegetative, which is a foliar fertilizer, and you put 30 mils of imidacloprid in the same one. What does that mixture do? It's very important for you to know what you're spraying or what you are drenching. At this particular point, we are drenching, and I will show you what it is to drench. You basically open your nozzle and you run your chemical mixture along like a tap. It enhances the root system to ensure that you are pushing nitrogen directly to the roots so that the plant can be accelerated to grow. The imidacloprid is a systemic insecticide which not only kills the insects down so that your roots don't get affected. It also affects the cutworms, not cat, cutworms, which cut your plants as you go. If you're a farmer and you've planted tomato before, you could plant today and tomorrow you find that everything is cut. We don't experience that in our field because we drench with easy grow vegetative and imidacloprid. Another thing imidacloprid does is that it's a systemic insecticide which lasts for 28 days. So you find that you have less pressure with insects, less pressure with anything, because it actually makes the plants bitter when the insects feed off it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about irrigation because people have been asking all sorts of questions. There's one question that I would like to address, which is it better to put drip lines in, or you can actually irrigate with a hose pipe?